Boom! And here we are.
Okay.
Here we are. Okay, Fighting with My Friends. This is going to be episode 2 with my buddy Brandon. We're talking NXT Takeover. I want to just kind of jump right into it with the NXT card. I think is kind of where I want to start. The card for NXT Takeover this week. We got Matt Riddle and Cassius Ohno. What do you think about Matt Riddle?
I saw a lot. I won't say a lot. I saw Matt Riddle do some stuff before he got called in NXT, before he signed that contract. His independent work, the stuff he was doing. I know he was in the UFC and he smoked and got, I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
I saw.
He failed a drug test. He failed a drug test.
Is that what it was? Okay. And he just didn't want to deal with it.
I think what his argument was that a doctor wrote him a prescription for the substance that he used, and that there were a lot of guys using things like Percocet and like Vicodin and things like that that were also prescribed by doctors. And his argument was that if those other drugs were found to have like somebody had them illegally, they would be in more trouble than the substance that he also had legally. That was his argument. That like why like it's like if you have a prescription from a doctor, it shouldn't be an issue in the UFC. That was his argument, and they didn't seem to buy it. So he eventually he wrestled in some smaller promotions too.
Yeah. His independent.
Yeah.
Blew up when he left UFC. He's
right. Yeah.
Obviously talented, obviously athletic, obviously has a great look, charisma out the ass. I think he's got a lot of upside. I
do too. I like that he's in the ring barefoot.
Yeah, it's different. I love it too.
I like it.
Yeah.
It makes me kind of buy it a little bit more that it's a real fight.
Exactly right. And I feel like they really began pushing that like circa Aleister Black's debut. Like, we're going to be a little bit harder. We're going to fight a little bit more in the ring. We're going to bring these kicks and strikes in a little bit more. And then, like, I love what you said that, because Matt Riddle comes in, it's like, but now he's not wearing shoes or wrestling boots.
Right.
We're really moving along in the striking competition era.
I think they should all take the shoes off.
Yeah.
I really do. I think they should all take the boots off. NXT at every level, take the boots off. It adds. It's hard for me to ignore the fact that you've been kicked in the face with a combat boot and how much damage that should really have done to you. And it like you have
a little groggy
skin or something. Like, well, what's going on here? So I think the no boots kind of helps. You can really sell the kicks, I think, a lot better in the no boot situations.
Especially the smacking noise with it too, the skin on skin more of contact.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Less chest slapping to get that sound. You know what I mean? Like, anything you can do to bring the amount of like effort I have to put into my suspension of disbelief, the better. Because when I watch wrestling, even though I know it's fake, I like to watch it the same way you watch like a movie or an action show. Those are fake too, right? But you still are buying into the stakes. So I want to buy into the stakes in a wrestling match too, and that stuff helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cassius Ohno is his opponent. He's been in NXT forever. Do you think he ever gets a call up?
I don't know if I think about Cassius Ohno going to the main roster. I think Cassius Ohno is one of the more underrated superstars I've ever seen, frankly. I think he's an amazing talker. I think he's an amazing competitor. And all the weight that he's put on over the years, he's still just outstanding, and he owns everything in the ring. I think he's a good anchor in NXT, and I don't think it would hurt if he's champion eventually. I think he's ran as a heel just as well as a babyface. I never really thought of him to be called up, because I guess he just feels good in NXT. Yeah. What do you think?
I think that was like, as soon as I asked that question, I knew that my follow-up question would likely be, does it matter if he ever gets called up? And I think you hit the nail right on the head. He's really at home there. I don't know what purpose he would ever serve on Raw or SmackDown. It's hard not to imagine these people used in the exact same way that they're used on NXT. And they don't need Cassius Ohno on either of those shows, but they kind of do need Cassius Ohno on NXT because he's a believable guy to put new people over with.
Yeah,
He's really good in the ring and put on he'll give you an excellent match. If you're a newcomer, if you're a Matt Riddle, he'll give you an excellent match and help you kind of get over with the audience, which seems to be one of the more devoted. The fact that they do that, the live tapings in the same place all the time for the regular NXT shows, that is a devoted audience. You'd think that they might get bored of going out to Full Sail, but they don't. They really don't seem to, you know. So that's kind of why I'm starting to wonder, like, is NXT, I kind of brought it up on one of my previous podcasts, but I'm just talking on those. I don't really have anybody to talk to, so I really would like to hear your opinion mostly about this. Is it still developmental, like in its essence, do you think?
Well, it started with that FCW, right? Where it really was like the developmental system.
Yes.
And then Triple H, I assume, brainchild it into something more, gave it a brand, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I think as soon as he made it a brand, it became more than developmental. I think it's nice to call it developmental because I think there's a schema that we see and understand that when you come from NXT, you go up to the main roster.
Yeah.
Like you're being granted something so great, but I think NXT is just as great, if not better, half the time, if not all the time, in comparison to the main roster.
Yes.
So is it developmental? No, I don't think it has to be. I think it offers a good system for superstars to develop. Like we have Casey Catanzaro, right, who did that American Ninja Warrior, and she was an absolute all-star. That's cool for her because then she can develop those skills, and she's already a rock star in the ring. We've seen what she can do in the Mae Young and a couple of tag matches she's had with Ricochet here and there. So I think it serves the purpose to be developmental because they're in that location. They have that isolated stationary area where they can train. They have all their trainers there and stuff. So I think it serves that purpose, but I don't think NXT itself can be developmental at all.
I think Triple H has been hinting at that too. He's kind of saying that he doesn't see it that way anymore. And I think, again, I think you put it really well that it's a great place for wrestlers to go to develop, but it does not have to be looked at like A-ball in relation to Major League Baseball. And, you have different varying levels of, obviously, people were meant to think that Raw would be like the majors, and then maybe SmackDown is kind of AAA, and then NXT is like AA ball or something like that. And, maybe that's 205 Live, and then NXT is A ball. That's kind of how you view the pecking order here. But I think NXT is just as good as Raw and SmackDown, which I think SmackDown has been consistently better than Raw.
For ever since, not quite exactly when they did the split again, but ever since, if you can remember, AJ Styles and Dean Ambrose had a rivalry for the WWE title. That rivalry and those title matches, I think, set off SmackDown to an entirely different level. And ever since, he took a slogan, "The House AJ Styles built," right? SmackDown had been on a whole nother level, and almost consistently so. There was a couple moments where I was like, "Ooh, what's going on in SmackDown?" And then Raw had a little bit more juice. It felt like.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree. I think SmackDown has been, in my opinion, more watchable, more interesting, more unpredictable. And I think that's what I look for a lot now.
Now, do you think that's... Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. No, you keep talking. You keep talking.
Hear my voice. I think NXT, even though in trade, when you look at it on paper, the idea is it's there as a training facility and it helps people develop and they have like a brand to develop in. But I think that the talent that's there is doing such a great job that it makes it more of a developmental product. It makes it a brand that's more worth watching than anything. Yeah.
Their personalities are there's something else. Another match that's going to be this weekend is Ricochet and Johnny Gargano. How pumped are you for that one? I mean, Ricochet is an example where NXT is helpful because I'm not in love with Ricochet's mic skills the way that I'm in love with Ricochet's everything else.
For sure.
Like from his appearance, like he's this absolutely jacked, tatted up, handsome dude who goes out there and just flips around all over the place, like
with unbelievable control. It's wild watching him.
It's crazy. It's like he must have been before this. And if somebody told me that he was like one of those dudes who like spun around on the ribbons in the Cirque du Soleil before he was a wrestler, I believe that. Like that could be his backstory. And I'd be like telling everybody, this guy used to be in Cirque du Soleil, I swear to God. Anyway.
Right.
And Johnny Gargano, again, somebody who I've been waiting for a year for Johnny Gargano to get called up to the main roster. I thought for sure.
Feeling for so long. It's like,
I thought for sure. Takeover Chicago. I thought for sure after Takeover Chicago that he was going up. That's just what I thought. And it's, again, I think it's one of those situations where we're almost lucky that he hasn't, because I think he's able to provide better storylines and better entertainment consistently on NXT. Then they don't use the guys that are his size correctly on Raw.
It would just be a poop show. I don't want him to be in a poop show. He's way too talented to be put in a poop show.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't be fair. But I think it goes into everything you were talking about too, in that it doesn't have to be developmental. And people like Johnny Gargano prove that. People like Cassius Ohno prove that.
Yeah.
These are guys that can stay there and make this brand way more of something than it already is. And if you put them on a SmackDown or Raw, it scares me and makes me sad to think how that they could get lost in what's already so talented anyway. Not that they're less talented. Frankly, I think they're more talented than a lot of what's already up there. But there's so much already up there.
Yeah. Look what's happened to Sanity.
God, right. We've seen him on TV twice.
Yeah, right.
Came up.
Yeah. I mean, and that's almost not an exaggeration. Twice is almost not an exaggeration. I mean, it is, but it's almost not. It's close.
Realistically, maybe 5.
Always in matches I didn't care about.
Right. No, it's just all trash match. All trash matches.
It's all New Day throwing pancakes around, and I like the New Day, but the segments on SmackDown where they were throwing pancakes and Miz was like karate chopping them out of the air, I just can't. I can't with those segments. Even though the New Day are fantastic in the ring, and I'm really looking forward to the Royal Rumble with New Day involved. I'm looking forward to see how Kofi Kingston keeps those feet off the ground this year.
Yep. It's always entertaining because you don't know what's going to happen.
One. He's going to do at least one, and it's going to be amazing. So I'm really looking forward to it.
He had a funny promo cut on the SmackDown the other night that he's like, "Guys, what if that's it for me?"
Yeah,
that's funny.
It's not even that I don't like comedy in my wrestling. I do. It's just the pancakes just get me for some reason. I don't know.
They've been going on for a long time with the pancakes.
Yeah. And Miz was acting like they were hurting him or like hurting his feelings. And like now we're dragging other people into this pancake garbage, and it's completely unnecessary. Back to the Ricochet and Johnny. Who you got? Who you got and why?
Ooh. What I would want is Johnny Gargano, because I want to see him establish himself as a solo competitor. He hasn't been able, since breaking up DIY. We've just seen him get beaten down by Ciampa over and over, except for like one great match that he did end up winning. They were all great matches. But I just don't feel he's established as a solo competitor. And he's had matches in between where he's had big wins, like he beat EC3, he beat a couple other solo stuff, but a takeover, Johnny Gargano winning that title I think he would hold it really well. And I don't think Ricochet. Yeah, I'm going to say it. I don't think Ricochet needs that title right now as much as Gargano could.
He certainly never needs that title to be entertaining. No. Isn't that the crux of being like a truly charismatic wrestler? Is like you might not get to hold a lot of titles because you really don't need them to sell merchandise and get heat.
I love that. You talked about that with your buddy last time, and I love that you talked about that with Becky Lynch specifically.
Yeah.
That there's no need to throw titles on her at the moment because she's such a powerhouse. She is wrestling, right? She's the best thing in wrestling right now.
Oh yeah,
but that's
absolutely.
Cool. I totally agree. It was a good perspective on title holding.
Right, like you do need to give those people titles eventually, but you don't need to just have them hold it forever. Like this idea that, well, everybody loves Becky, so we can't take the belt off her is like, that's crazy. No, everybody loves Becky. Take the belt off her. Have her win it back in 2 months. Yep. It'll be good. You know what I mean? That's what I think they should do with Ronda too, but it sounds like maybe Ronda's leaving. So that's, I don't know what to think of that. You know, like, yep. But then she comes out and kind of, what she said was that it's her vagina and nobody else's business. That's a direct quote. That's what she said. And she's absolutely right. She is 110% correct. Like, but I don't know how to read that though. Like I'm trying to read that, and I'm trying to. So is she saying, yeah, she is going to take a break for a little bit, and that's none of our business? And she's right. Like nobody should be upset about it. I'm not upset about it. Like from like you ripped us off as fans. Like I'm not upset about it like that. I just, no. If you ask me if wrestling's better with her there, absolutely.
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Every single time. I know that there have been talks ever since she came in. I know that there were talks like eventually she wants to start a family. She wants to go and live her life away from all of this stuff that she's been dealing with for so many years. Yeah. And I 100% with you. Good. Do what you need to do every single time.
Sure. Yeah.
But I feel you. I'm going to miss her around too. I remember when she came in, my wife and I actually got to go to Mania last year in New Orleans, and it was her debut match with Kurt, right? It was
no way.
Dream. It was an absolute dream come true. But she'll tell you, I think anyone that was there will tell you, the match of that night and the moment of the night was Ronda Rousey's debut. Everyone on their feet, electricity throughout. It was a feeling that I've never experienced in a sport event.
I'm getting it right now. Just listening to you. I'm getting it right now. You know,
she was astounding. Amazing. And there was so much chatter like, oh, she's awful. She's a part-timer. She's going to get everything handed to her. It's like, well, let's see what happens. And she blew the roof off the Superdome. It was incredible. And from thereafter, she's just been impressive. More and more impressive every week, frankly.
Yeah. She's not a part-timer
So that's why, no, she's showing up on Raw every week. I love it.
Yeah.
She's amazing. And I would be upset just because it's like you're so entertaining. I love having you on the shows. But all the power to her doing what she needs to do. I respect that more than anything.
Yeah. So what was going to a WrestleMania? What was that like? Because I hear that I don't know that I know anybody personally who's been to a pay-per-view other than you. I know a lot of people that have been to Raw tapings, and they tell me that it's like, well, it's cool, but like when the commercial break is there because someone will be in like a wrestling hold for like 2 whole minutes. And then like all of a sudden they snap to life and you think to yourself, well, we're back from commercial. You know what I mean? So like I've heard that sometimes the fan experience at Raw is very cool, but can be a little bit like there's certain things we don't see because of commercial breaks that aren't really all that worthy of seeing anyway. You know, so what's it like to go to a Mania? It's not even just a pay-per-view, but WrestleMania, where there's just they don't hold much back, you know?
No, that was my first pay-per-view. My wife and I and a buddy and I, we've been to a couple live shows. We've been to a couple Raw and SmackDown tapings here and there. And then my wife and I were having conversations. She goes, "Do you want to go to WrestleMania?" It's like, "I don't want to go to WrestleMania." And she was serious. And then I was serious. So we just bought tickets. We got the plane. We're like, let's just do it. So we had a nice little vacation off in New Orleans, went to WrestleMania. And there's nothing like it simply because in the Superdome, 80,000 plus, and you have, I love the pageantry of WrestleMania. That's 90% of it for me, right? The pyro coming back, people wearing thematic clothing that they don't normally wear, different gear. Oh, it's just absolutely electric. Undertaker's entrance at WrestleMania. There's nothing like it. And you go to sports games, 80, 40, 50, 60,000 people, different places, but there is nothing like 80,000 plus wrestling fans in a wrestling event, all just going nuts because it's what they love so dearly. It was wild. Wild.
That's so cool. That's so cool, man. That's incredible.
Absolutely. And being in New Orleans, on every corner, all the restaurants are blaring like entrance themes, and people are doing cosplay on the side. There was like a Darth Vader dancing to different entrance themes down all these different streets in New Orleans, and it was just wrestling. New Orleans was WWE that week. It was very cool. And I think it feels like the same thing's happening for the Rumble right now in Phoenix, where everything in Phoenix is WWE. You see it on billboards, you see it. The whole conference center, when you walk in, is just WWE meet and greets, the Superstore. It's just, it's like a big comic book convention for WWE fans. Frankly,
that's
it's
awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I'd like to go to a live event one day. They have them often near me. They have them pretty often over in the Dow Event Center. They'll have them and Grand Rapids and stuff like that. I don't know if they're Raw or SmackDown tapings near me very often, but they'll have them the live events sometimes, and those are I would love to even go to one of those. Arguably, I've heard that house shows, even though it's not a Raw or it's not a SmackDown, and nothing's really gonna count per se, it's still awesome. I've heard house shows are great. So
they're more entertaining for that reason. I think you can make an argument that they're more entertaining because it's all off camera. So they just have a lot of fun, and it is a lot of fun.
I almost would rather go to a house show than go to a taping. I think that sounds really cool. I'm hoping to go to an NXT show one day.
They're coming to Detroit in March.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. I did not know that. And they're usually not very expensive either.
It's especially then the venue's smaller. NXT isn't Raw, right? It's not taped.
Right.
It's yeah.
No, that'd be interesting. Okay. Another thing about Takeover and NXT in general, I'm a big fan, even if it's kind of a love-hate thing, of the Undisputed Era. But I'm kind of hoping that the War Raiders just like wreck them, right? Like the War Raiders have a lot of charisma for me, going back to like some of the mammoth tag teams of my youth, like the Natural Disasters and stuff like that.
Yeah, you can feel it. Yeah.
Like there's and even though they're not as big, Hawk and Animal, and there's just something about the War Raiders that I don't even like their name. I can't stand their name. I think it's the stupidest thing in the world. But they're great. They're wonderful. Okay, and not to like get too sidetracked, but there really is no track. Like we're just going. So like how terribly are they featuring Heavy Machinery right now in these promos on Raw and SmackDown? Have you seen this? Where the blonde big dude from Heavy Machinery was just standing behind Alexa Bliss going, girl, smack girl. Like it was terrible, man. That is awful. That's what happens to NXT call-ups. I'm done. I am absolutely at this point swearing off talking about who deserves to be on the main roster. because what happens to him?
Schema, right? Deserves to be, right?
Right.
I agree. I don't know what
the
writing was with that. I don't know why they were featured in the way they were on Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah.
And then there were like these background shots of EC3 in the mirror, and then the promo you were talking about with Dozovich coming out, and it's funny because it does meet their character, but it did feel where are we going with this? But their debut that night was pretty cool. I was pretty happy with their debut.
Sure.
But I agree with the backstage stuff. I don't know what the point of that was. Like Lacey Evans popped up in the background a couple times, and then she came out and had a nice cut with Alexa I liked.
Mm-hmm.
But it felt like when they finally came out, like it was almost a little minimized because of the promos that they had. It felt lacking because we'd already kind of seen them in weird segments prior. I don't know what that was. I
don't know who's doing this stuff over there. Like, I don't think it's hard. Like, I just don't. I don't know. I feel like, do you ever play 2K18 or 2K19 or whatever? You ever play any of the WWE games?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Do you ever do universe mode?
Of course.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if you do universe mode the way I have a tendency to do universe mode, but I like take notes sometimes and keep track of like who I've got beefing with who and why and what I did to who with who. Like, oh, Stone Cold's mad at Shawn Michaels because Shawn Michaels mid-match like came out and hit him with a chair and ruined his match, and like I some of this stuff. And I feel like I write better Raws than universe mode in my imaginary can't shut it off. Like it's the same stuff I used to do playing with wrestling action figures when I was a kid. Man, it's like
we develop our own narrative. Yeah.
You know. And so like I just don't think it's that hard. It just makes you wonder who they've got doing it, how much control the wrong people maybe have, and why NXT is so much it's so consistently better. And there's the argument that it's only an hour, but I feel like you should give them 2 hours at least.
I would love that dearly, especially at this point. I think they've modeled the 1 hour well enough. I think to really showcase that talent, 2 hours is a good point for them and to have more story. But I think that's also where WWE is losing some of its fandom and where all these independent brands are building their fandom, because those independent brands like Ring of Honor, New Japan, and now All Elite, I think they're seeing these gaps that WWE fans keep complaining about, and they're capitalizing on them. I don't think we're going to see a day where WWE's trampled by anything. All Elite, we can talk about that a whole section about what that's doing. That might be different, but I don't think it's very near where WWE goes down. But these brands are capitalizing off of where WWE just keeps stalling out. Brock Lesnar for champion for 70 years straight.
What?
Stalling.
It's terrible.
The same thing, and I feel it.
It's terrible. But at the same time, I think we should have 2 hour Raws too. I think it's time. To cut Raw back to 2 hours. SmackDown 2 hours. They managed to be entertaining for all 2 hours, so I don't have a problem with 2 hour SmackDowns. And 2 hour NXT. And maybe, and like I said, maybe that'll never happen, but it gives NXT a little bit more. Some of the mid-card matches in NXT they're never really boring. That's where they stretch out the talent that you don't get to see very much, is in those mid-card matches. And I really like them. I wish we got a couple more of them, like is what I'm getting at. The only reason they get to be testing for my patience is that I don't see enough of these people to be invested in them, and that's the issue. Is there's I wrote it down last night, or there was a match that was a tag match between like Danny Burch and his partner Oni Lorcan or whatever, and Eichner and Bartel, and it was fantastic. When you watch NXT, it was fantastic. I don't see any of those either of those teams enough.
I totally agree.
I don't see them enough. I would like to see more of them. And 2 hours might help that out a little bit. You know, we might
especially with NXT.
Yeah.
Even frankly, I would take 90 minutes.
Sure.
I think because when we look at Raw, we feel like it might be exhaustive, and then we look at NXT, it's like we want a little bit more. So what's the balance between that 1 hour, that 3 hours? Does SmackDown have it? Probably. But then when I think of Raw too, it's like they've got a lot of talent that they can showcase in that 3 hours. I don't think I hate 3 hours. I think I just hate what they do with it. Because they'll spend 20 minutes with Lucha House Party and no one's on board. So it's like, is this just the bathroom break that we have to have so we can come up and down and you can regulate the crowd emotion? Like, maybe. But I feel you. I think there's a lot of talent. At this point, NXT's never been hotter, I don't think. Even when Finn was on there and Joe and Shinsuke, those were great times. But right now, the talent on NXT is just, it feels really good. And I think a boost in time would be a lot of fun. I really do. I remember even just Bianca Belair, who I think we should talk about.
Absolutely. So are you a fan of the EST of NXT?
So into Bianca Belair. I think she is such a star. She's such a
star. Me too.
She's so
100% agree.
God,
100%. I wrote down. There's right here. You can see it. Maybe. Bianca Belair? Question mark. We were talking about Bianca Belair no matter what. They got to put that belt on her. I am all in for taking the belt off Shayna Baszler and putting it on Bianca Belair. I am 100% all into that.
Totally.
There's nobody. I like Kairi Sane too. Don't get me wrong. Kairi Sane flying all over the place. It's impressive. Her elbow drop, she really sells it. Like, I'm not trying to complain about her, but there's no woman on NXT who deserves to be wearing that belt more than Bianca Belair. Her in-ring performance is fantastic. Her cocky attitude is fantastic. Like,
the hair gimmick.
Yeah, the hair gimmick is great. You know, I say all the time, like, why isn't she on Raw? Like, I wish she was on Raw because Raw needs more talent in the women's division. It's
especially like her. She's got that superstar potential written all over already.
Absolutely.
She's someone to be right in the picture. I agree. But that's what I was saying, because Bianca Belair was one of them who we saw her once. I was like, whoa. More, please. And we didn't get a lot of her at all. It was just little bits of Bianca Belair for so long.
Yeah.
So long. And then finally she gets this nice TV time push. And then she gets a title match at TakeOver. Let's go. And frankly, I didn't like Shayna Baszler at first at all. I thought she was just lacking in so many levels. It was boring to me, and I just couldn't get behind her. And then in a matter of like a month or two, I was like, you are incredible. I think Shayna Baszler's really good, and I think she's done. I think you can make an argument that Shayna Baszler has been as effective as women's champion on NXT as Asuka was in her own way. But I'm 100% with you. If there's anybody taking that title, it's Bianca Belair.
It's gotta be
Bianca Belair run.
It's gotta be. It's time. It's time. I don't have a problem with Shayna Baszler. Shayna Baszler is a good wrestler. I appreciate. It's almost like Shayna Baszler and all the MMA people have a very believable in-ring style. It's very believable. Ronda's is very believable. Shayna's is very believable. Matt Riddle in the short work I've seen of his looks very believable in the ring. I'm excited to see if they ever put the other two women that Shayna Baszler runs around with, the 4 horsewomen or whatever. I'm curious to see if either of them ever end up in the or I'm sure they will, but when are they really going to end up in the ring? Like, I haven't seen.
They did have a tag match a couple weeks ago, about a month ago maybe. They had a tag match against, I think, Kyrie and maybe Dakota Kai.
Okay, Then
They held their own.
and then that's awesome because I forget stuff. You know what I mean? So like, but that's good then that they're starting to get used a little bit because I'm getting a little bored of just seeing them as like, Shayna's attack dogs.
100% agree. Yep, they need to develop their own personality.
Be Shayna's attack dogs. That's fine, but there just needs to be a little bit more of them. I want to get to know them a little bit. I want to see them in the ring. I want to hear them on the mic maybe once or twice. That's usually what the holdup is with most of these people. Is like, okay, but can you memorize your lines or like, and not just memorize them, but like not get nervous about delivering them
and then deliver them. Yeah,
because one of the two would trip me up. For absolutely certain, one of the two would trip me up for a long time. It's like, well, I was really confident, but I said the wrong thing because I forgot. Or I knew my lines, but man, I was nervous. Like,
you just stated them as they were.
Yeah, right. One of the two would mess me up for a long time. So who do you got? Who do you think's actually going to win that women's matchup between Shayna and Bianca?
I think I want Bianca, but I think it's going to be Shayna only because I it's Shayna with Jessamine Duke and the other one.
Name either.
Shoot, she's married to Roderick Strong, which is kind of wild.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It is. That is kind of weird.
Something with an M. I don't know. But I feel like they won't only because Shayna's so hot and that they're building something into that. And Ronda Rousey would be the complete piece. She'd be the fourth.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought for sure we were eventually going to see a 4 horsewomen of MMA versus 4 horsewomen of WWE match. It seemed like it was like everything was getting lined up for it. I thought it was going to be, maybe it'll be at the next women's pay-per-view. If that happens while Ronda is still active in some way with the company. That would be cool. Yeah, I think it would be cool too. I do. That would be a cool match.
Great.
So you think Shayna though? You think Shayna is going to keep it?
I think Shayna is going to keep it. I do.
I think you might be right, but I'm going all in for Bianca. I think they just have to.
I would love it.
I think she's just too good, man. She's the best. She'll tell you all about it. You know what I mean?
Fastest, strongest. Oh yeah.
Yeah. She'll tell you all about it, man. She's the best, and I think she is. It's amazing to me that right now, if I was going to talk about the most important person, the most important wrestler on each show. For each show, I'd be mentioning a woman right now.
Absolutely the same thing. Yep.
I'd be telling you the most important wrestler on Raw is Ronda Rousey. She's the most important.
Question. Yep.
She's absolutely the most important. I'm a massive Finn Balor fan. I like Seth Rollins. I mean I like and especially with I almost called him Samoa Joe because his name is Joe and he is Samoan. But with Roman Reigns currently, absent, there aren't a lot of people contending for that most important person on Raw, like moniker. And right now, it's absolutely Ronda Rousey. And there's no doubt the most important person in the company is Becky Lynch. And like as far as like right now, I mean, maybe it's hard to say most important, but like most MVP of the company right now is Becky Lynch. MVP of Raw is Ronda Rousey. The MVP on NXT is the EST of NXT. Like, I just think that it's interesting that like when I was growing up, women's wrestling was like, I had to make sure it wasn't on TV when my mom was around. You know what I mean? Like, because it was like lingerie matches and people getting their dresses snatched off. And
Yep.
That's
Did
why
you feel that attempt in the last 2 weeks for them to try to break that mold in a weird, unnecessary way? Because we have to objectify them again. No. We're done with that.
Done with it.
Didn't need that at all.
Right. And it's
I think it minimized Mandy Rose. I think it minimized Alexa because there's so much more than being objectified. I did not want. No need for that at all. They're so talented beyond their looks that was bullcrap to me.
Right, they're obviously attractive. Like we don't need any help with
so
that.
They're all the men. They're all beautiful people.
Right? Yeah, for the most part, absolutely right. And like we don't need any more help with that. Like, and I'm not. And like I said, I don't begrudge anybody enjoying what they like see. You know what I mean? Like, look at, oh, she's gorgeous. You know, yeah, she is. You know what I mean? But like, why the towel stuff now? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
right. This weird throwback.
It's terrible. Don't do it. Don't do it. Like, I know nobody listens to me, but man, don't do it. Somebody's got to tell them, don't do it. Stay PG. Stay PG. Ramp the violence a little bit at the pay-per-views. And just
keep putting on high quality matches.
Right. And just stay PG. I think it's important. Like, I think it's important. Because like the women's wrestling has come so leaps and bounds. I didn't watch wrestling for several years. And when I first started watching again, the first women's match I saw, I can't even remember who it was. It doesn't matter. I was blown away by it. I was like, oh, they really wrestle now. Like they really actually wrestle now. Like this is not, you know, it's not a lingerie match. It's not anything that like if my mom or my wife watches wrestling with me all the time, and I don't ever like am like, man, they just totally objectify these women. Like I never feel like that. They just kick ass. That's what they do, you know. And then to see that kind of stuff is, ugh. I haven't seen it on NXT yet, so hopefully we don't see that like the second show after Takeover, because their first show after Takeover is always terrible. It's always garbage. I almost never watch it. It's worse than the first Raw after a pay-per-view. Like it's worse.
Because you get the shows that they recorded while they were at the Takeover that were kind of like build up the crowd shows. Yeah.
Yeah,
and then they recap Takeover, and you get like maybe 2 matches, and there's no development or aftermath. Yeah,
right. Yeah, it's no good. So Tommaso Ciampa, Aleister Black.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the right match?
I think that's a great question, because when they put that rivalry back, I didn't feel complete with it. I'm fine with it because I know it'll be awesome.
It'll be great.
Yeah, it's just, it feels maybe lazy. But what I hold on to is what they're doing with Gargano and Ciampa.
Yes.
It's all about whatever's going on there.
I have also really excited. Do you think we're going to see a DIY reunion? Like, not necessarily in the form of an actual tag team, but at least in the form of like they're friends again and they're working together. Do you think we're going to see that?
I think that would be such a cool storyline. Just because you had these 2 guys who started, I think, at the Cruiserweight Classic, and then they were at NXT, and then they became DIY, and they were undeniably the hottest tag team when they were in NXT overall. Everything, they were just hot. And they're both great talkers and in-ring competitors, and their chemistry was second to none. And then to have that dramatic breakup and the unbelievable rivalry that came of it, and now they're both on this heel ramp where they're connecting in some way again.
Yeah.
It's just such great. It's so cool.
It's like a comic book.
Yeah.
It's like a comic book. It's like It's like when I don't know if if you're a Batman fan or if you read a lot of Batman books, but I believe it's at the end of Killing Joke, when Batman nearly he kills the Joker, like he killed the Joker, and in order to defeat his like arch nemesis or whatever, he ultimately had to betray everything he believed in. And now he's just as bad as the Joker. Maybe worse, because the Joker never betrayed what the Joker believed in.
I love that parallel. That's awesome.
So like what we're seeing now is Johnny Gargano was the hero. He was Johnny Wrestling. This rebel heart, man.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it, you know.
Yep.
And
And you
now,
got Ciampa was like, you should go for the North American Championship, almost manipulating him. Like, yeah, I will go for the North American Championship. And now it's just this tug and this. Oh yeah,
it's fantastic. And now he's something else. And he I want to say that what I wanted at this takeover is I wanted the match where Johnny Gargano finally defeats Tommaso Ciampa and puts an end to this whole thing. That's what I wanted. But what I wanted was for him to ultimately have to do some really out of character things in order to make that happen. And they kind of already flirted with that line at the Takeover Chicago match with the Chicago Street Fight, where Johnny had to kind of go to places Johnny wouldn't normally go, and it didn't work. So I'm like, so what's it gonna be next? You know what I mean? And we're not getting that. But I am entertained with this whole thing about they're flirting with them kind of joining forces again. I know that you said you haven't seen the most recent episode of NXT, but there comes a point where Tommaso offers Johnny to shake his hand, and Candice runs out and is like, "No, this is not happening. Are you thinking about being friends with him again? What are you thinking?" You know what I mean? So like, they're really planting the seeds, and it takes Johnny from being the ultimate hero to almost being worse than the initial villain who always only did what they believed was right, and we just didn't like it. Like we, as like the viewing public, like Tommaso Ciampa didn't decide he was a villain. You and I decided he was a villain. You know what I mean? Like we took Johnny's side. Like Tommaso Ciampa has never betrayed his Ciampa-ness. What makes Tommaso has always essentially been the same. You know what I mean? And like, but Johnny has gone dark, and like he's almost like the bigger bad guy now when you think about like the character arc for like how much of what he thinks is right or what he thinks is like wrestling he has betrayed in the pursuit of trying to get back at Tommaso.
Yes, I totally agree. And it's been such a nice, slow burn, and the amount of how dynamic Johnny Gargano has been. I've never seen a character that dynamic in wrestling that I could think of. I mean, frankly, you could talk about Daniel Bryan, but that was almost a switch. And now this heel Daniel Bryan is. We talk about that for 3 hours straight. It's unbelievable.
It's great.
The slow burn of Gargano has been. It feels more dynamic rather than Daniel Bryan was like a static switch.
Yes.
But Gargano's been like this dynamic, pulsating, breathing, living change for over a year now.
You can just see it happen.
Yeah. Oh, it's insane. And then you're talking about this past one with Candice still getting involved and seeing that pulse, like, no, I'll be the hero, I'll be the hero. It's magical. It's
fantastic. It's like Dark Suit Superman, man. It's everything that the Justice League movie should have been. Like, have you seen Justice League?
Mm-hmm.
You haven't seen Justice? Did you have any interest in seeing it?
I do. Yeah, I'm just so behind on the DC.
Well, then I don't want to spoil it for you. We can talk about Justice League another time. Like, I don't want to spoil it for you. But there is in the Superman comics, there's a point in time where Superman he's like kind of bad. Like he's bad. And that's kind of what Johnny Gargano as a slightly evil character or as a heel has been like is this. I don't know, man. Like I want to see somebody try to redeem him, and maybe that will be Candice's like role on television going forward for a while, is trying to keep Johnny out of the abyss and remind Johnny that like he's good, you know. But so Ciampa and Black, I think Well, who do you think's going to win? I guess that's what I want. Ciampa?
Every time. Ciampa's not losing the title for a while.
Yeah, and
He's electric.
It's silly because he almost doesn't need it for people to hate him, but people seem to hate him so much. He comes out there and waves that thing around. He doesn't even use entrance music.
No, especially for that while. He was just booed out of the building every time. That was the strongest heel reaction I've seen in a while. If you watch like New Japan at all, there's a guy named Jay White. Besides Jay White, I've never seen such strong, realistic heel reactions, like just straight visceral boos to somebody. Because usually nowadays, like the Bray Wyatt, the old Stone Cold treatment, the Becky Lynch treatment, it's like, oh, you're so bad, it's cool, and I love it, and I appreciate what you're doing. Because there's that new mentality of fan, I think. But Ciampa and Jay White, these guys are just hated, and they play it so well. But I am happy they did add music. I think his music's pretty great.
I was really enjoying the while there where his entrance music was the chorus of boos.
It was nuts. Yeah,
I loved it. There was a couple episodes of NXT because they're filmed. It's tricky with NXT because like I for a while would see somebody in the crowd and then see them again at the next episode, and I'd be like, this guy goes to NXT a lot, but that's not how it works. They film like for 3 or 4 hours and then break it up into 4 different hour-long shows. So when you go to an NXT taping, you're going to 3 or 4 shows or something like that. Like it's
that makes
3 or
sense.
4 hours.
Yeah.
So like there was an old lady, front row, old lady wearing a Johnny Gargano shirt, right?
Yeah.
Like I mean, like this lady has to be nearly 70. Okay.
Well, I would say 90. She was. Yeah,
You've
she was
seen
right
her?
up front too.
You've seen
I remember.
You know
this.
what I'm talking about? And she was she yelling at Tommaso Ciampa. How you used to be okay, and like you're so bad, and like she just hates him. She hates him, and I love it. I love it. I watching an episode with my wife, and I elbowed her, and I was like, "Look at how into this lady is." And I love wrestling for that, man.
Yep.
This lady hated Tommaso Ciampa.
She did. It was real for her. It was every bit of real to her.
I love it. I love it, man.
Totally agree. And I think that's the change in wrestling, is we see less of those fans now. Because now there's kind of like what we're talking about. We're seeing more of the dynamics behind the scenes. And I think it's changing the fandom, changing our expectations, changing the layouts.
You know, everybody knows it's fake though, and so like I hate Tommaso Ciampa too. If I was at an NXT taping, I would boo the crap out of Tommaso Ciampa. I would just absolutely boo him until like my chest hurt. You know what I mean? But like, I love him. I love him. I love that he's the villain. He's a great villain. He's friggin' Darth Vader of wrestling right now. He's absolutely just frightening. He's like Samoa Joe is good at that too right now, and I think that they're taking a lot of like Samoa Joe is doing things now that Tommaso Ciampa was doing 3 months ago, going around and so they've been playing like you can kind of see it happen. They start like Triple H. And this is how I think it works, and I don't know this for sure, but this is how I think it works. Triple H gets an idea that Vince doesn't want to do. And he's like, I'll do it on NXT. And then on NXT, it's fantastic. And
every
then
time.
Vince is like, we got to do that thing that you were talking about months ago that's working so good on NXT right now. And so you see the breakup of Tommaso and Johnny and the way that has gone over the last year. And as soon as Dean Ambrose was ready to wrestle again,
boy,
people whispering in his ear about breaking up the Shield, and so like it's same song, different band, right? Like it's DIY all over again. And like I said, it's an old song in wrestling to break up a tag team and have drama surrounding that. That's an old song, but they're playing it well, And so you can kind of see, though, that it worked really well on NXT, and now they're doing it on Raw. And the same thing with Samoa Joe's heel turn. That I mean, he's always been a little bit heelish, but he's always been a little bit heelish. But it's gotten worse, I think, or he's really ramped it up, I think, recently. Hold on, just a second. I don't really care. Okay. So, I don't know. It seems like they really took a lot from what Tommaso was doing in NXT and really applied that to this Samoa Joe.
The more visceral, aggressive heel.
Yeah,
I agree.
And just going around, and same thing they were doing with Randy Orton, going around and attacking all of our favorite guys.
That's right. That's a good call.
All of our favorite guys, they go around and attack. Oh my God, seeing Jeff Hardy getting his earlobes twisted about, like,
that was wild.
Just not only was it gross, but which is great. It was fantastic. This is all good. Everything I'm saying about this is good. It made me feel terrible. I hated it. I hated
That's what needed to happen.
I didn't want to see that happen to Jeff Hardy. I love Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy was like my idol when I was 12. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I love him so much. And so it hurt me to see all that happening to him, but it was great because I love him so much. It's fantastic. So what else do I want to get to on here? Because there's a few other things that I wanted to talk to you about, and I want to try to keep this as close to an hour as possible because I want it to be digestible. I want people to want to watch it.
I got to interject about Dean Ambrose for 30 seconds.
Yeah, no.
You brought up Dean Ambrose, and I think he's one of the most talented people on TV in every possible way. But the way that he turned heel, jumping smart. They capitalized on the awful timing, and he just fine. It was smart. But when he comes out and he's calling the crowd smelly and he's attacking the crowd, Dean Ambrose doesn't need that. Dean Ambrose is so talented that he doesn't have to come out and do those cheap heel pop moves. Dean Ambrose is way too good of a talker. So when he came out and he had the gas mask and he's telling Pittsburgh they smell bad, he can't stand the smells. I think it got off to an awful start, and I couldn't get behind what could have been one of the best heel turns in a long time.
Okay.
I needed that. I need to say that.
No, that's absolutely fair. I didn't think it was as good as it could be either. I've said that they should have gone just full Bane with him. He should be coming out in a gas mask every time. Telling the crowd they stink, that's old hat. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it's lazy. They don't need to do that. I like it when Elias does it because he comes out and it's funny. For a long time, he'd come out and he'd play 3 notes of his song and be like, play my music in Cincinnati.
I love that. But Elias would attack the culture of a city, though. That was fun. He would hit the culture, like Seattle. They don't even have a basketball team. He would attack the culture. I love that.
That's a deep cut over there. That's a really deep cut over there. Sad
you
about
got food out of the building. It was nuts.
Excuse me, that hurts. That hurts in Seattle.
Oh yeah, that was nuts.
Especially with how good the Thunder have been. Pretty much since 2 years after they left Seattle. They've been consistently one of the better teams in the NBA. Seattle hates that. That hurts. That's like the Baltimore Ravens. You don't talk about the Baltimore Ravens in Cleveland. You don't talk about it. That hurts. They left, and 2 years later, they won a Super Bowl. That hurt. Or I think it was 3 or 4 years later, actually. But either way, man, that hurts. That hurts in Cleveland. They feel like that was their Super Bowl.
Yep. Local, sensitive, realistic attacks on the city. That's heel move.
Yeah.
Dean Ambrose could have done that, but I think a heel Dean Ambrose doesn't have to attack a city in a weak way, tell them they smell bad. No, I love the gas mask look too, the Bane look. I thought it was sweet. But to tell them they stink come on. It just felt lazy.
I think what I think actually kind of might be cool if it happened here soon is a new era of factions. I want to see some factions again. I want to see Dean Ambrose. When he came out with like the dudes, there were other dudes with him with gas masks on, but none of them were important. They were all just like random big guy number 4. We need him to come out with like take like No Way Jose. Take No Way Jose. That character is dead. Take the guy who is No Way who's Jose. Make him like you don't even need to like make him dark. You know what I mean? Like make him evil. Like give me a cast of evil dudes that Dean Ambrose is running around with that I know. A cast of dudes I know.
Yes.
Like
totally do it. With his talent, look what The Miz did with the Miztourage. Look what Randy Orton did when he had Cody Rhodes and DiBiase.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Right. No,
awesome.
that's
and Triple H and Evolution, right?
Right.
All these really cool faction that built up so much talent as we know it now. And I think The Miz proved that we can do it still with the Miztourage. I think Dean Ambrose could totally do it, especially with someone like No Way Jose. That would be shocking. Such a surprise. And you get No Way Jose on TV, who is talented, and you get rid of the gimmick that really didn't translate.
But he's completely boring. He's completely, his character is so boring. I don't want to see conga lines on Raw. I'm sick of it. It's dumb. Mojo Rawley, stick him and Dean Ambrose, Goona. Like, he is in the ring. He's talented. I like his shoulder block moves and stuff like that. They look good. They look like they really hurt the person that they were put on. That's the whole point of this, is it looks good. So, but his character is, but his character and the way he's used is just boring. The closest thing he got to being entertaining this year was that stretch of time where he was coming out talking about how they didn't use him right. Because it was true.
Let's go.
You know what I mean? So like you throw him in Dean Ambrose, you know, gang of villains, and you know, we almost had something like that with Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler and Braun Strowman. I love Dolph Ziggler. He's one of the best heels. His in-ring work is fantastic. I get a lot of crap from a lot of my wrestling friends for liking Dolph Ziggler as much as I do. For me, he's Shawn Michaels. Like Shawn Michaels was my favorite wrestler growing up. I love Shawn Michaels. I was such a Shawn Michaels fan. And Dolph Ziggler is every bit of that. Not every bit. Nobody's ever been every bit of Shawn Michaels. But Dolph Ziggler is so much of that. And the look is right. I think that also helps out, that the look is just absolutely, it's right.
He's a smarter guy. He's good looking. He's got the longer hair.
Right.
He's a great talker. He's unbelievably in the ring.
Yes.
I think with Dolph is he's not in the matches he should be in.
No.
He's just getting beat down for so long. When he cashed in that Money in the Bank, do you remember that on Del Rio? That was one of the most exciting Raw segments I've ever seen in my life. That was so cool. And he ran it. And he had the faction too, Big E and AJ Lee. It was so much fun. It was such a great faction. I agree. I think Dolph Ziggler is way more than he is shown as on TV. And he just never got the chance to be as good as he even could have been. And he did have chances. He's
criminally underused. And again, I think it comes back to Vince McMahon is not a big fan.
He's too small
of guys that are Dolph Ziggler's size. He doesn't picture them as big time wrestlers, so he doesn't use them as big time wrestlers.
Totally. And I think it was kind of crazy that they had Vince actually come out and nearly say that to Finn this past couple weeks. Like, I just don't believe it. Like, so he's really adding on, I think, to what the fan base is saying.
And I think that's why I'm suspicious that they actually that we are actually going to see the title change hands at Royal Rumble. I said when it first came out that Finn was going to be in the match, I was like, oh, it's going to happen. And then the next day I was like, it's not going to happen, folks. You know what I mean? And so now
you get that kind of excitement and then it's just sucked out of you.
Now I'm wondering again, though, because I read a dirt sheet that basically said everything Vince McMahon said, And then Vince McMahon came out and said the same thing that very day. And it makes me think that the company leaked that dirt sheet. And they want us to think that Brock is going to win really hard. They really want us to think really hard that Brock is going to win, and he's not.
If he does, it's going to hurt really bad, and people are going to be really, really mad because they come out and they're like, "We're here for you now. You're the authority. We've been listening to how garbage the writing has been, and we're going to change it. Here's Finn Balor. Gotcha. Just kidding. Brock Lesnar again." That would be so devastating and so frustrating. But every time I come back to it, I can't help but think they're not going to want Finn Balor at WrestleMania. They won't do it. I just don't think they see that way. I don't think that they see Finn Balor as WrestleMania, it's more than just a wrestling event. It's like entertainment central. It's the event of the year. We're drawing crowds not of wrestling fans. We're drawing people from all over the place that have never watched wrestling before just to come and see this event. Yeah. And I think people know Brock Lesnar and they don't know Finn Balor. And I think that sucks.
Yeah, well, but here's the argument that I would make. And this is why I think it might even be more suspicious that Finn might be coming away. I think this year, Ronda Rousey is going to main event WrestleMania.
I hope so.
I think she is. I think it's going to be Ronda versus Becky at WrestleMania. Oh, your video's cutting out a little bit. Are you still there?
Ooh, hello.
Your video froze up for a second. Are you still there? Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. No, I think it's going to be Ronda and Becky at WrestleMania. I really do.
I hope so. If it isn't, I'd be more mad than Brock retaining, frankly.
Yeah. 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 So like the issue is like Vince doesn't have to see Finn Balor as the main event for WrestleMania. He doesn't have to see him in that light because that's not who it's going to be.
I love that logic. I really
even if he does get the belt, the Universal Championship, he's not going to be the main event at WrestleMania. That's going to be Ronda Rousey. It's going to be the two real biggest stars. Gender be damned. The two biggest stars in the company are Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey. I don't see that changing between now and April.
Yep. I think that would be amazing. Especially because what they've done with the WWE title for the last couple of years now, putting AJ and the mid card with the title.
Yeah.
Why not? You have the hottest draws in wrestling and entertainment in Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey. It should absolutely be a main event. And I think if Finn Balor comes out as a demon at the Rumble and wins that belt, I'm gonna be over the moon. Because that then I have faith in wrestling again. I have faith in WWE anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, me too, man. I'm really hopeful. I really am, man. Like
that's what we have. That's what we hold on to.
Yeah, and I know in order to main event WrestleMania and to be in that match, that means Becky Lynch has to be in the Royal Rumble match tomorrow or on Sunday. I know that means that. I think it might happen. I still think it might happen. When I think of 30 women, I can't think of 30 women that should be in that match at all. That list doesn't include Becky Lynch.
There's no way. And we've seen Roman Reigns
get to 30 without getting to her.
Or Enter the Rumble, rather.
What's that?
We've seen Roman Reigns have a match and then enter the Rumble the same night.
Yeah.
Becky Lynch can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, that's what I think too.
Awesome surprise. Have her lose to Asuka. Asuka keep the title. Have Ronda Rousey go in as Raw champ. Becky Lynch come out, win the Rumble. Take on Rousey at the Rumble for the Raw title. Take out Rousey at WrestleMania. That would be such fun.
Yes.
So much fun.
Yes. She doesn't even need to lose to Asuka. It would almost be interesting if in the interim, she actually won that belt. And had an opportunity for it to be a champ. I'm using my Royal Rumble rights to like have the main event match for the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania. I'm going to use my Royal Rumble rights for that, but I'm not giving up. But I still the SmackDown champion too. You know what I mean? Like,
a lot of fun. Yeah.
I'd really like to see that. I saw a joke post that said that Becky Lynch was going to enter the men's Royal Rumble. They were joking, but I wouldn't hate that either.
Ever enter, eliminate John Cena, and then end up getting eliminated by a bunch of people or something? Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be kind of great. Okay, my other question. I've been asking pretty much everybody I know who watches wrestling. R-Truth and Carmella won the mixed match challenge, and therefore R-Truth and Carmella will be entering 30th in the respective Royal Rumbles. Now, Carmella, I buy entering 30th. She's a former champion. I buy that. Like,
very talented too. Very talented.
Absolutely. Even if the screaming is a little ridiculous, her in-ring work is really good. She's very talented. R-Truth is also, his in-ring work is fantastic, and he's excellent. I just don't think that they have a whole lot of respect for him. I don't see him entering the Rumble 30th. I don't see it happening. So if it's not Truth, who do you think enters the Royal Rumble, the men's Royal Rumble at 30? If it's not R-Truth,
I think it's going to be something silly, like R-Truthy, that would happen. Like he gets confused and maybe enters the women's or something and gets turned around, or he comes out as number 1 on accident and gets eliminated. Something silly, like R-Truthy. Yeah, it just comes out randomly somewhere else somehow.
Yeah.
Or maybe he gets attacked by Becky Lynch and Becky Lynch comes out 30th. That would be nuts, right?
That would be nuts. That'd be nuts.
So if it's not R-Truth, I don't know. Last year's Rumble was cool seeing Shinsuke and Asuka win, but it wasn't exciting. It wasn't fun. It wasn't surprising. It was really dull. It's really dull. So that's what I want more than anything. So I hope, even if R-Truth doesn't enter, I hope it's entertaining and I hope there are surprises. Frankly, I don't know who though. I stopped reading all the articles and like dirt sheets and stuff like that because it was taking away a lot from me for wrestling. Like the surprises. Yeah. Sure. I wanted that predictability less, and that was making it harder for me. So I don't know. I don't know what they'll do, and I just hope it's something exciting and fresh. That's all I want.
I'm right there with you. I'm puzzled as to who it might be. John Cena is injured right now, but I hear that's kayfabe. So maybe Cena. Maybe R-Truth gets his spot hijacked by a man he cannot see.
That's right.
Who knows? But the Cena injury I hear is completely fake. That's not real. He's not really injured. So yeah. So like, and he has been on TV for a bit again lately. I'm almost surprised that they didn't put the United States Championship on him or something like that. What do you think about those matches getting bumped to the pre-show on Royal Rumble?
That happened fast.
The U.S. Championship match, and what's the other match that got bumped? The Cruiserweight Triple Threat match or whatever it is. Both of those were matches I was kind of looking forward to.
Yeah. The last thing I remember thinking about those mid-card titles, I remember when The Miz had the IC title, and it was actually in the rivalry against Dolph. And it was the best storyline going on for the longest time. They had like 4 matches, and it was amazing. They made the Intercontinental must-see, like Miz would say. He made that title the title. Since Miz dropped it, it's been nothing again. Even when Seth Rollins had it, I didn't care. And I love Seth Rollins. But I didn't care. It was just, and the way that the writing was, they made us feel like it was worthwhile or worthless. And then Shinsuke got the U.S. title, which was great. Good. Let's give him the title. And then he's gone.
Never put him on TV. He was just gone. On TV.
Right?
That drove me nuts. I love Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yes.
I love Shinsuke. He's fantastic. Like everything this whole thing, he pretended not to speak English was great. His exaggerated movements, his weird dance moves. I always feel like he's trying to make like a chicken feather on his head or something. I don't know what the hell the dude is doing. I'm sure my representation of it is completely stupid, but I love him, dude. I love when he bends over at his back and he's like, ah. like
He's oozes with charisma. Oozes with charisma.
He's fantastic. And they put a belt on him. I was like, hey, cool. They put a belt on him. I am not an AJ Styles fan. I was hoping he was going to get AJ's belt. But they at least put a belt on him, and then he just disappeared from TV. Every single match he had with Jeff Hardy to get that thing back was interrupted by Randy Orton. And that went nowhere.
Which is stupid.
I thought Randy was going to wrestle him for it, and I was like, this is going to be dope because Randy Orton is going to wrestle for the – and that didn't even happen.
No, everything was just completely removed from TV. All the storylines that could have been. Here's my controversial statement. I think Vince only just likes big white men, and if you're not a big white male, then you're really of no worth to him. He doesn't see that as money making, unless they go to Saudi Arabia and they use Jinder Mahal, who's not from Saudi Arabia, but he looks like he is. Right. So I think it's this Vince McMahon bias that has so much to do. It's like, all right, well, we'll give you the Rumble, and then you're just going to lose a lot. And then we'll give you the U.S. title to make people happy that are bitching. But then we're going to make sure you're not on TV because you're not really doing anything for me.
Why? What is this?
Same thing with Asuka. Asuka has this amazing streak on NXT under Triple H's supervision. Comes to the main roster, loses to who? A white woman, Charlotte Flair.
Yeah, sure. And I don't have a problem with Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair is great. She's fantastic. And it does speak, I think, a little bit to Vince's biases a little bit. Like, and it's not, I don't think it's a racial, I don't necessarily think it's a racial thing, but I'm going to have a hard time telling you an African-American heavyweight champion.
Yep. And that's not.
I can't. Yeah, no, The Rock, that does not count. Anybody that says The Rock, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like that's different. You know what I mean? Like, they've had opportunities to do things with people that they just haven't.
That aren't white men or white women, and I totally agree.
And they haven't. And so, like, and for instance, I think that them putting the IC belt on Bobby Lashley is, I don't like Bobby Lashley. I think he's so freaking boring. Like, I can't stand him. I can't stand him. Yeah. But like, them putting the belt on Bobby Lashley is at least entertaining. And I was kind of hoping they were going to put the heavyweight championship on him for a while there, not because like I wanted to see him have it, but just because like then somebody not named Brock Lesnar would have it.
Something different, something
and
fresh.
That just got completely scrapped. It's so weird, the odyssey with Brock right now. He's still under contract with the UFC. He's still technically under contract with WWE and the UFC, both of them. They're still talking about maybe he's going to fight Daniel Cormier, but well, I guess they're really not anymore. Not after the John Jones fight a couple of weeks ago. Now they're talking about DC and John Jones. But like somebody asked Dana White after that fight though if that ended his plans for Brock Lesnar, and he said no. We would still make a fight for Brock Lesnar. Like it might not be a heavyweight championship fight, but you'd still make a fight for Brock Lesnar. So like he's still under contract with that organization. He's still under contract with the WWE. It just gets confusing. And for a while there, it was like we knew he was going to go fight DC, so they were going to take the belt off him in WWE. And then those plans got scrapped completely. I don't know if you remember, there was about a month in the fall where they weren't even mentioning the Universal Championship on television.
Yeah.
They weren't even mentioning it. Yeah. Like the Bobby Lashley-Roman Reigns rivalry went from being who was going to face Brock to just being. Like all of a sudden, they weren't even talking about that Brock stipulation anymore. Just now these two are beefing.
Yep.
It makes for a confusing. It just makes things confusing. And for Vince needs to wake up and smell the coffee a little bit, that some of the more electric and more popping talent that he has is a little bit more colorful than it used to be. And it's also not as tall as it used to be or as heavy as it used to be. Like, you shouldn't be looking for 6'5", 240-pound guys when the live audience and the TV audience clearly prefer the work of the guys who are just a little bit bigger than cruiserweights. These 280-pound, 300-pound, 400-pound dudes, a lot of them don't work. Like, they just, a lot of them don't work. Anyway, we're pushing an hour and 20 minutes, and I want to try to keep this one a little bit shorter than the last one, just for the sake of, not rambling on and producing something people can, maybe watch all of or something like that at some point in time. We pretty much covered everything that I had written down. I guess the last thing, who wins the Rumble? Both of them. Who do you got in both of them?
I want Becky to win the Women's Rumble, and I want Seth Rollins to win the Men's Rumble.
Me too.
Seth Rollins should have had that Universal title months ago.
Yeah.
Months ago.
You're right. You're absolutely right. If it wasn't going to go to, I kind of preferred the idea of Seth having it over Roman.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that too. I love Roman Reigns.
I like Roman Reigns, but Roman Reigns was getting kind of boring in all of those main events, but not closing anything.
Yep.
And he got absolutely jobbed at the Greatest Royal Rumble. Oh my goodness, got jobbed in that cage match, dude. But so I'm right there with you. I'm hoping for Becky and Seth. That's what I'm hoping for.
I like it.
And I would like to see the titles that they ultimately challenge for and try to call out being cross-show titles. I would like to see that happen in both cases. I would like to see that happen, whatever it is.
I'd love to see that.
I like that controversy. I like that controversy, man. I remember when I was a kid, there were 2 Intercontinental title belts for a little while, and dispute over who the real Intercontinental champion was. And we just need stuff like that again. We need stuff like that.
Something different, something unpredictable.
Yeah, and this is a time of year for it. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do. As far as NXT is concerned, what are your hopes? One hope for the year going forward that you would like to see on NXT?
Ooh. What hope? I want to see 2 things going to my mind. I want to see Velveteen Dream with a solo title, or I want to see Undisputed with every title. And Bianca Belair to Undisputed Era, man.
Yeah, I like both of those things. My big hope, I would really like to see Bianca Belair with a title on. I think she needs it. And I'm right there with you.
It's got to happen this year.
Yeah, absolutely, got to happen this year. You can't have the belt on Shayna for too long. And like I said, I don't think Kari is undeserving, but I don't think she's more deserving from a superstar potential standpoint than the EST of NXT. So
she's incredible.
Well, hey man, it was really good talking to you. Thank you for coming on.
Ditto. Thanks for having me. This is awesome. Anytime.
All right. We'll have to talk again soon. Maybe after Royal Rumble.
Please.
All right. Cool, dude. All right. See you later.
See you.